Okay, I'm going to do ring sling 101. First thing is you decide which shoulder you want to carry, put the shoulder of the sling on. And if you're not sure, usually think about which arm you would carry a load of books or a baby sitting on your hip. If that is on your left hip, you're going to want the sling on your right shoulder and vice versa. I usually wear most people have a preference for one side or the other. I always wear on my right side. A chiropractor would tell you you should switch back and forth frequently. It's better for your posture, but most of us have a strong preference one way or the other. It's okay, when you're learning, pick whatever's easiest. I'm going to hold the sling out in the hand opposite the shoulder it's going to rest on with the rings in front of my hand. And I'm going to make sure that the sling itself is not twisted around, that it is threaded through the rings so that the rails, which is the name we give the edges of the fabric, are visible at the kind of outer part of the rings. And then I'm going to just stick my arm through, put it over my head so that I have kind of like Miss America sash. The shoulder of the sling should be cupping the curve of your shoulder, not creeping up on your neck and obviously not falling all the way down your arm, but just nicely set about halfway. If you have a gathered shoulder sling or a hybrid that you can spread or scrunch to adjust it how you want it, if your shoulder is pleated like this one, it's just, or a lightly padded shoulder, it's just going to rest right there. You want to start with your inner rail at about the level of your ribs. That's where the back of your baby's knees are going to be, and the baby's rear end is going to be a little lower. So you don't want this to be down too low. This is going to be a little bit looser at the top so that you have room to put the baby in and adjust that afterwards. Okay? Oh, and the rings should be right in front of the hollow of your shoulder, which is usually called corsage position. Or some people like to start with them just a little bit higher because you're going to tend to shift downward a little bit as you go. That's a common problem when you're learning. So just comfortably right there. So now I'm ready to pick up the baby. Hi. I'm borrowing our sweet demo doll baby here. Okay. I'm going to put her up on my shoulder opposite the side that the rings are on, like a burping position. And then she's sitting on my arm. I'm going to use the other hand to reach through the bottom of the sling and guide her feet through. And I'm just going to basically pass her butt into my hand and set into a good carry position. And right now I'm really just pretty much ignoring the fabric of the sling. I'm just going to get the baby positioned where I want to carry her. You got my name tag. Okay? And then, now that her weight is resting in this hand, I can let go here and use this hand to get that sling and bring the fabric around. I'm going to start with the inner or bottom rail and make sure it is snug across my back. I'm going to work it around and up across the baby's knees like this, making sure that there's no slack in the fabric and pulling it snug until I get all the way over here and my wrists are crossed and I've got a good grip here that I am just not going to let go of, so that there's never going to be any looseness there. Now I'm going to pull this hand out. I'm leaning back so that gravity helps hold the baby, and she's now sitting on this forearm and I'm still holding this rail. Now I'm going to use this hand to pull up the rest of the sling fabric from the upper rail and draw that all around here. Notice I'm still holding on down here so that all the slack in this fabric is now up. So I'm still holding that in a rail. We've got all this sling worked around so that I'm drawing the fabric up to hold snugly behind the baby. Now all the slack is up just close by the rings. And when I pull on the tail, I'm just drawing that loose fabric through. The rings don't travel down. And the baby's weight is still not on the sling because she's still sitting on my arm. And this is all going to get snagged up. When you're pulling on the tail, you want to basically pull the fabric back on itself at 180 degrees. You don't want to pull the tail straight down because that makes a funky angle here. It's going to get twisted up. You want to pull back across at the angle that it's coming up to the rings. And the rails, you want to help lock them in place. You're going to pull the inner rail down and to the side a bit, and the upper rail across and up a bit so that they get out to the part of the rings where they're touching each other, clamps them in place. Last step here, I'm actually going to let the baby settle now into the fabric of the sling, take my arm out of the way, and I'm going to lean forward a little bit and bounce to make sure that the rail is now at the back of her knees and there's a little scoopy shaped seat. Don't cry, that's embarrassing. And she's sitting securely in with the inner rail tight and locked in place so that she can't straighten her legs or jump out.